Hey guys, Omni here. We are back and a little late, and I apologize for that. It's been a busy day. Just got back from seeing Venom and just finished recording my review of it. On top of trying to keep up with Squid Game and all that other junk. Sorry about that, guys. But let's go ahead and get ready to dive into New Rockstar's breakdown of episode 8 of Marvel's What If. This episode was insane, and I can't wait to see what Eric Voss has to say about it. If you haven't seen my reaction, go check that out. But let's go ahead and dive in here. If you are not subscribed to their channel, what are you even doing? Go do it. Love these guys, man. I really do. I love Eric Voss, man. He's just so entertaining. The whole crew, man. Let's go ahead and jump into this thing. Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Marvel's What If Episode 8, What If Ultron Won? A truly terrifying Age of Ultron that even the Watcher and his fighting PJs can't stop. This episode was filled with interesting Easter eggs and MCU implications, so I'm gonna break it down frame by frame for everything you might have missed. We open on the Watcher, his outline framed in the snow of post-apocalyptic Moscow. Unlike past appearances, his silhouette has retreated behind the elements of our atmosphere, reflecting how powerless he now seems this episode, with the falling snow like pieces of himself as he risks dematerializing into obsolescence.
I saw it as like him finally, like after everything that happened, you know, he's finally taking a step back and relaxing a little bit. Like he was like, okay, maybe things will work out just fine. I can go back to just kind of chilling, not stressing, you know, getting to the brink of being like, oh no, what's happening here? I don't know. We'll see.
He laments,
"We've seen this before. A universe in the final days of destruction. But this particular story, this one breaks my heart."
I'm curious about the exact timing of the Watcher's narration. By
Me
we've seen
too.
this before, he seems to be referring to past apocalyptic episodes he's shown us, like the Doctor Strange and the Zombies episodes, but it's not clear if this Watcher was the one who reacted to Ultron's arrival to Party Thor in episode 7. So is the story that breaks his heart the story of Ultron's destruction of Earth that we're about to see, and he's now speaking to us right before the moment Ultron sensed him? Or are we seeing a truly defeated Watcher speaking to us as a ghost beyond his cosmic grave, and his heartbreak is really coming from the story of what Ultron is about to do to the multiverse in the second half of this two-part finale event? Is this evidence of multiple Watchers? I have some thoughts on this later, but here Natasha Romanoff roars past on a motorcycle, her taillight bleeding a streak of red like blood in the water, luring some predators, in this case Ultron sentries. Meanwhile, Clint Barton's arm was replaced with one from an Ultron sentry.
Very,
showing how in
Oliver
this
Queen.
machine-dominated post-apocalyptic world, he must supplant his flesh with pieces of that which he hates. But it's worth noting that this is now the arm and hand that Clint uses to release his arrows, so he does benefit from the technological precision of those robotic motor functions. Clint's cloak is made from the same mesh fabric that Natasha and Melina and Sharon Carter have used for cloaking purposes. Clint does rely mostly on his sentry arm to do the heavy lifting, but as he fires a hole through one of their heads, notice how the camera frames his human hand through the kill hole, a way of showing triumph of man over machine. And Natasha helps Clint to his feet, avoiding joking need a hand, claiming puns aren't her style. Yet, notice the next line.
Puns aren't really my style. We're getting rusty.
Getting rusty, as in Clint's mechanical arm collecting rust. Yeah, she loves puns. Then the Watcher rewinds the clock to Tony's invention of Ultron.
"I see a suit of armor around the world."
A direct quote from Age of Ultron.
"I see a suit of armor around the world."
Back then, Tony designed Ultron to operate his Iron Legion, an idea he pitched to Bruce Banner, and I love how in that conversation it inspired this what-if hypothetical, given the little exchange between them in that moment.
That's a man-sized if. Our job is if.
Ultron goes online, and in this moment, he's weirdly already in his later form, not the disembodied AI he was born as in the film, and then shortly after the broken Iron Legion drone, actually that was the same one that the Sokovian protester he faced in the opening scene of the movie. But then this Ultron cross-dissolves into the body that would later become Vision, resting in the cradle in Helen Cho's South Korean facility. This transition neatly shows how Ultron successfully merges with the Vision body this time, instead of Helen Cho pausing the upload at 40 42% in the film. And notice how when he opens his eyes, they glow Ultron red, the color that shows his consciousness in any given Sentry drone, contrasting Vision's blue eyes. But remember, Helen Cho was only able to stop that upload when Wanda Maximoff dispelled her from the Mind Stone's mind control. It's just worth noting how many of these Nexus moments really come down to the decisions of Wanda Maximoff or Stephen Strange, who will be the pivotal characters in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And speaking of Nexus, the Avengers' defeat by Ultron goes down in the Nexus Internet Hub in Oslo, Norway, seen briefly in Age of Ultron when Tony Stark tried to track Ultron's movement through the internet.
And is this just the center of everything? I'm just a guy looking for a needle in the world's biggest haystack. Oh, I'm decrypting nuclear codes and you don't want me to.
Aha, so Ultron ascends on his path toward becoming a Nexus being at the Nexus Internet Hub. Now, theoretically, Ultron's assimilation would have occurred right as Tony made that crack about the nuclear codes, which could have actually led Ultron to this place to initiate global nuclear annihilation, which is way more fun to wipe out the human race than throwing a chunk of a city back at the surface.
You don't have to do this. I made you for peace.
It's evolution. Only a primitive mind would fail to see the distinction, which is why you have to die.
Now, replacing James Spader as Ultron this episode is Ross Marquand, the voice of Red Skull. Now, notice the visual of Cap's shield
And he gets
broken
around,
in
man.
half, and his body strewn alongside those of Thor and Hulk, as Stark is just left to watch it all. This is exactly Tony's nightmare vision cursed into his mind by Wanda Maximoff come true. And this episode makes it the fourth one to kill off Tony Stark, really the only Avenger to die on screen in every repeat appearance on the series. It's almost as if this guy needs to die for the multiverse to move forward. I actually have a video coming out in a few days exploring how Stark's death may actually be an absolute point. Now, during this
Now, like I did hear, now I don't know if this has been confirmed, it's just what I've seen from the comments, is that the episode that was cut involved Tony. So there might have been a Tony episode. Don't know. We don't know if he would have been a big part of it and just died still. Unsure. But I think it was supposed to be Tony on Sakaar or something like that. I think that would have been where we saw Gamora also as well. I don't know. That's just what I've heard. Just let me know. Is that true? Don't know. Anyway, back to the video.
sequence, the Watcher's hand swipes over the frame, transitioning it with this kaleidoscopy texture from the main MCU reality to this alternate one. These what did happen slides have always had a storybook aesthetic in past episodes, and now we see why. Because to the Watcher, he is flipping through the pages of what's essentially a comic book that he's already read, and in his case, peering from one crystalline window into another. Thaddeus Ross watches in horror as ICBMs strike all over the world. Notice how one ICBM from the Texas region, if you follow its trajectory, is headed right for Wakanda, which Ultron must recognize as a global superpower alongside the US and Russia and China. Thanos portals into the aftermath just as he arrived in Infinity War. Now, he already possesses the power, space, reality, soul, and time stones, meaning he must have begun his stone quest earlier in this universe. Perhaps Ultron killing Thor and or the Ancient One in the nuclear blasts could have cleared a path for Thanos to go to Xandar for the Power Stone, to Asgard for the Space Stone, and so on. However, Gamora is still alive on the Sovereign, so he could not have sacrificed her on Vormir to get the Soul Stone. Now, Gamora could have sacrificed Nebula to get the Soul Stone, but would she have parted ways with it without giving her life? See, folks, when it comes to the Infinity Stones, this show doesn't really consider their exact continuity that big a priority, it turns out. So we are best chalking it all up to,
in other universes, the stones are wherever they need to be for the story to work.
Ultron uses the Mind Stone to slice Thanos in half on Avengers Tower. What the hell? Well, I suppose if you consider that Thanos could
went for the head
by his Malthusian ambitions, and by comparison, Ultron, as a super efficient robot brain, could have quickly mastered his stone's fullest potential to get the draw on this eco-terrorist who's still figuring out how his toys work exactly. But yeah, it is nuts to see Ultron wield the Mind Stone so perfectly to fillet Thanos and melt a Nidavellir gauntlet. And
so in defense of that as well, Vision, as a hero, is always holding back. They made a definite point in Infinity War to hit him with that staff specifically designed to disrupt his vibrational ability, his phasing and whatever. And he spent the rest of the movie heavily depowered. So who knows what Vision could have done if he wasn't injured, wasn't damaged, or was at full power. Nerfed Vision. But Ultron, like you said, he's a villain. He's all about efficiency. He is all about wiping things out, the moment he sees an opportunity, I completely envision him like not hesitating at all to take what he wants. Especially considering that we know that Thanos has to flex a muscle, has to actually do something to activate the stones. They aren't passively active. Otherwise, you know, he'd be unstoppable. I mean, they wouldn't be able to do anything that they did in Infinity War or Endgame against him once he had them. And we've always seen that they have to be activated or something. And Thanos just came right out of the porter, had no chance to react or move. And obviously with the Thanos that we know, I feel like he would come in there with that boastful confidence, especially having 5 of the 6 stones. So, I don't know. Because I've seen a lot of people talk about that. I was like, well, I mean, he had all 6, and Thor would have killed him had he hit him in the head. Vision just decided to go ahead and Ultron decided to just straight up go for both his heads all in one swing. Just boom, done.
So Ultron plugs in the 5 remaining stones into his new armor.
Wow. There are worlds that need me.
Yeah, notice how the stones emit that heavy tone. The same sound that we heard Thanos' gauntlet would make in Infinity War when emitting stone energy. Ultron materializes an army of sentries using the Reality Stone, but also they come together in this black ink dot effect. Now, in comics, this is known as the Kirby Crackle or the Kirby dots, created by artist Jack Kirby, who would use similar dots to convey cosmic negative space around energy. These Kirby dots return around most of Ultron and the Watcher's attacks later in this episode, and it elevates Ultron to a Jack Kirby cosmic level character like Galactus. And I love when the show uses ink in this way, like how they showed Doctor Strange's universe melt back into comic book style ink, the base elements that form all of these characters. Ultron first destroys Asgard. I think the imagery looks a lot like when those alien battleships strike skyscrapers in Independence Day.
Yeah.
But if you go through frame by frame as Asgard explodes, notice the water pouring down from the edges of the disc vaporize before the whole plane obliterates, just like it did when Surtur destroyed it in Thor Ragnarok. Then
That's a nice
the Sovereign,
detail,
which you remember from Guardians Volume 2, and we see Peter Quill and Gamora and Drax fighting on that same platform that they fought the Obelisk. And since this is in 2015, this is a place they already would have been to, because Guardians Volume 2 takes place a month after Guardians Volume 1. Then we go on to Sakaar, where sentries pour into the Grandmaster's arena. You can see Korg fighting alongside that strainer-headed gladiator from Thor Ragnarok, who also cameoed in last week's Party Thor episode. The Grandmaster dies in the blast as well. And then Ego gets hit, looking just as he did in Guardians Volume 2. The craters on the surface make his face in a shocked expression.
He's like,
with
oh,
his mouth gaping open and his eyes widening.
Oh god, if he had like
no,
surprised Pikachu face, that would be great.
And then on to Xandar, which of course you saw in the first Guardians. During the Sentry attack, the Nova Corps tower does appear to be under reconstruction. Not just wreckage that Ultron has just caused, but apparently some attempts to rebuild from some past conflict. I thought it was just from Ronan's assault in the first Guardians film, but at the end of that movie, it was not this much under repair. So we might be looking at the aftermath of Thanos' recent attack to steal the Power Stone. It would justify how he got that stone, at least. Captain Marvel arrives to fight.
Listen, Skynet, I've seen the Killer Robot movie, and I gotta say, I really don't think it needs a sequel.
Yes, Skynet, referring to the robotic AI computer network that nukes the planet in the Terminator franchise. But this line about the sequel, well, we know Carol got abducted in 1989 and returned to Earth briefly in 1995, but then seemed to jet off with the Skrulls. She did land in a blockbuster, but I don't think she had enough time to know that a sequel to the 1984 Terminator, the amazing T2 Judgment Day of 1991, was a way better film. So this killer robot movie that she was referring to
T2, man.
totally needed its sequel, and her wrongness on this point, in my opinion, makes her deserve to lose to Ultron here. Now, Ultron was just about to call it quits.
It's done. At last.
The Watcher didn't just shut his fucking mouth.
Shut up, Uatu! The Watcher monologuing here did amount to intervention, because had he said nothing, Ultron may have self-destructed or retired and never thought to move on to the other universes. So the Watcher's already kind of intervened. He's gonna have to intervene to undo his intervention. Even after Ultron senses him behind his back, the way Doctor Strange did in episode 4, the Watcher continues.
Who said that?
Basking.
That is a good point. It's like, this isn't the first time his narration has been heard. So like, he just doesn't learn. Yeah, and bites him in the ass in this one. It's like, hey, Watcher, how about you watch and stop talking? We don't call you the talker or the narrator. Well, I guess he could be the narrator, but still. Shh.
In the boundless silence of his universe, Ultron ascended to a previously unattainable level of consciousness. He became aware of another. He became aware of the...
I see you.
Yeah, this moment of realization is odd because, yeah, again, we saw a separate moment of the Watcher first seeing Ultron Infinity at the end of the
Right?
Thor episode. So
That's
when
why-
did the Watcher first recognize Ultron as a multiversal threat? Then or now?
Yeah.
Well, the Watcher does say here,
I have seen everything that has ever happened, ever will happen, ever could happen, and yet, what the hell is this?
now, yes, there are multiple Watchers in existence, but I think this one voiced by Jeffrey Wright is just the same Watcher that we saw at the end of episode 7. And I think this is his way of describing how he is just a multiversal being with his perception divided across an array of moments in history. Kind of like He Who Remains, he's able to see the past, present, and future all at once. And we have one set of his eyes reacting to Ultron crashing Party Thor, and another set of his eyes reacting to Ultron here. And that only when Ultron responds to him behind that prism wall, despite him trying to wipe the blinds closed, does he finally see him as an existential threat to his script. And the heartbreaking aspect to the story that the Watcher at the beginning of the episode is talking about is literally Ultron breaking the heart of his Prism multiverse. That's why this story breaks his heart more than the others. Also notice
We also don't know how long it took Ultron to actually find him, because obviously we don't know how time works here, since he sees everything all at once, and through the prisms, everything is accessible at any given point. So, like, he says, I finally found you. So how long had Ultron actually been trying to locate the Watcher? So it could have been simultaneous with his watching of the other universe when Ultron popped up there. He's like, oh, wait, what? Maybe he thought he got away from that when he wiped away from that scene, you know, disconnecting him from that moment. Maybe he thought it would be gone. So he's, okay, I'll go watch Party Thor for a hot minute while he's also keeping an eye on this universe and Natasha and Clint, you know, while Ultron still has not found him yet. And then while he's watching that, Ultron pops in. I don't know, like that bit, like it just like
how much the Watcher
hurts my brain a
blinks
little
here.
bit.
That was a little detail I pointed out last week as just a bit of evidence of Uatu's human-like fallibility. And now he blinks like crazy as if trying to wake up from a dream.
If a hunger like that were to be unleashed upon the multiverse, even I cannot imagine the horrors that might follow.
Yeah, the hunger is also the name given to the zombie virus in the Marvel Zombies comics, a virus that spreads across universes in the pages of the comics, unlike in the show. So I'm wondering if this show could actually follow through on what the virus is in the comics, and that the Watcher could try to use that multiversal hunger to neutralize this multiversal hunger. Clint and Natasha seek a Zola file in a KGB archives warehouse that Clint compares to the final shot of Raiders
You'll
of the
have
Lost
two
Ark when the
sets of
camera tilts up
Infinity
at both
Stones
versions of the
facing
shot.
off against
He also later references
each
Star
other.
Wars.
The Death Star plans are not in the main computer.
And Natasha says,
Hard copies are harder to steal, easier to destroy. But code is slippery, and it never dies.
the lesson they learned from Ultron, of course, but also one that they will apply to Zola, perhaps foretelling how they might not be able to kill Ultron permanently, but rather they have to find a way to contain him. Natasha finds the shield of the Red Guardian, Alexei Shostakov from Black Widow. He did not have that shield in the Black Widow film, but his action figure did. In Arnim Zola's file box, there are some other names in Cyrillic letters. I didn't take the time to translate these. Oh wait, of course I did. They seem to be the names of a bunch of artists who worked on the What If series. There's Paula Sane, he's the What If production designer. Then Molly Sotak and Fran Portillo, they're design coordinators for Marvel Studios. Then Cynthia Halley and Peter Bertucci, those are Marvel Studios artists. And then in the later shot, as Natasha thumbs through these, you can
Damn, I saw so many people see that one and be like, is that Charles Xavier? And I gotta say, like, I was one of them, but yeah, the translation, I guess doesn't match up.
see Joshua Bramley, he's the What If asset supervisor. And then
Maybe
Sean
it's both.
something, and then El Grasso, and then Zachary, split up into 2 words, and then May Fam, maybe My Family. I'm just assuming all these are crew or friends and family. These are just the ones that I spotted. Ultron breaks into the Watcher's domain.
I found you. I finally found you. So many universes. So much chaos. They need to be silenced.
You do not have to do this.
Yeah, the Watcher begs using the same exact words that Tony Stark did, begging for his life.
You don't have to do this.
Which probably gives Ultron even more resolve to bring peace to all of existence by silencing it. Natasha and Clint find the same Siberian Hydra base from Captain America's Civil War, but here the tanks that contain the other Winter Soldier assassins are now all empty. Meaning Hydra might have deployed them to try to stop Ultron, and obviously failed. The Arnhem Zola algorithm comes back on this computer terminal.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Romanov, Natalia Alyanovna, Barton Clinton Francis.
Of course, similar to how he greeted Steve and Natasha at Camp Lehigh in Captain America Winter Soldier, except now he calls them Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. R.I.P. So, in addition to Zola's AI presence living on in Camp Lehigh, secretly corrupting S.H.I.E.L.D. as Hydra, Zola was also present as a backup in the same place that Tony Stark realized Bucky killed his parents, and Cap knew about it, leading to their fight. Makes me wonder how maybe in the main MCU, Zola could have been a silent partner to Zemo and helped supply him that footage as a way to hunt the Avengers from the grave of Hydra and giving one last FU to Captain Rogers. Either way, folks, Zola lives. Now, they try to use Zola to infiltrate Ultron's code via his Sentry hive mind, the same way that he infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., and Clint does this by downloading him in one of his arrows, using that same awesome USB drive arrow that Clint used in the first Avengers film, and he plugs it into an Ultron Sentry with some cool color coding here, Zola's AI green replacing the Ultron red. Go light and stop light. They climb the same silo that Stark chased Cap and Bucky up in Civil War, and we see various alternate functions of Clint's arrows like laser netting, a force field barrier, and one that just has a powerful boom boom, which might be what Clint is referring to with Kate Bishop in the upcoming Hawkeye series.
This is too dangerous.
Holy There are arrows more dangerous than that one?
Natasha catches Clint, but in a mirror of Natasha's death in Endgame,
Hey,
Clint forces her
he'll
to
never
let
be
him
fully
go. Actually, in the first Avengers
flexible
film,
until
Clint
he's got a
turns
boxing
back
glove arrow.
upwards mid-air to fire arrows up, but here he turns mid-air downward to face certain death. I love this shot of him falling slow motion into the swarm of sentries.
Beautiful.
Beautiful composition.
Gorgeous.
Notice how they tilt the whole silo at an angle to make Clint's drop look like a deliberate strike. And then they widen out the silo way larger than it actually is in order to heighten the contrast of the one versus the many to give it all a more epic scale. Natasha lands from the explosion in the snow, making the pose that Yelena made fun of her for in Black Widow. Meanwhile, the Watcher and Ultron duel, and it rules! Uatu withstands a double blast of the Reality Stone and the Time Stone, though note that in this domain, which might be Uatu's version of the mirror dimension based on how it looks, Ultron doesn't use the practical functions of the Time Stone or the Reality Stone, like rewinding the flow of time or like turning Uatu's robes into beetles. They're
Maybe he
simply
can't.
just big energy blasts.
I don't know.
And that might be a limitation of the stones outside of any one reality. Like, you still remain an all-powerful Nexus god, but the specific unique functions of the stones themselves might not be exactly usable here. Now, the Watcher defends himself.
I swore an oath. I cannot exert my will on the natural order of things. I cannot intervene.
To whom did the Watcher swear this oath? In the comics, Uatu is one of many Watchers, the one assigned to our universe, and we know others exist in the MCU from the Guardians Volume 2 scene, but we may have to see Uatu answer to his fellow Watchers for his interference. Uatu blocks Ultron's Kirby crackles with a shield of glowing lines that look like celestial design, like the cosmic energy used by the Eternals. The Watchers and the Celestials have an antagonistic relationship in the comics over whether or not to interfere. Watchers swear not to, Celestials can't help monkeying with the monkeys. But notice how Uatu suits up in this combat armor, kind of like the Watcher Aaron the Renegade from the comics, but the fact that Watchers have armored forms, just like the Celestials have these armored forms, might be a clue that these two entities might have been at war with each other in eons past. Ultron tackles the Watcher through these different worlds. We see this
Kind of reminds me a little
planet,
bit of
an ice planet, then
the Monitor
molten lava planet.
in his
Actually looks
armor
a
a
lot like
little bit.
Mustafar from Star Wars. There is a castle in the background that looks like Vader's fortress. And come to think, the jungle planet did have some flora similar to the plant life of Felucia from
Yeah,
Star
I've
Wars,
seen that
so the animators
comparison.
might have worked in some Star Wars nods here. And then another ice planet, and then this
Yeah, it
rock
could be
planet with
Hoth.
floating columns that a gargantuan Ultron bites
How-
down on, looming even larger than
How-
the whole galaxy. Clearly a nod to Galactus, devourer of worlds, an entity that we have been pining to see in the MCU. I think it's the show's way of
can't
striking
wait.
fear and awe of Ultron Infinity as a Galactus-sized threat. But even Galactus doesn't consume celestial bodies out of spite like this. He's driven by a custodial drive to Marie Kondo, the universe of dying dysfunctional planets. Then the Watcher crashes into Times Square with onlookers, including that pineapple shirt guy from Vegas in episode 7. 7. There's also a billboard for Olympia the musical, as we saw in Times Square in episode 3, but nothing yet about Rogers the musical, because I guess here Steve Rogers is taking the oath of office to become the US president, something that does happen in the Ultimates comics. But perhaps in this universe, Steve Rogers only ran to prevent candidate Loki from becoming president. And that could be how that Loki got pruned to the void. Ultron's punch turns Times Square into Wakanda, and then to a medieval castle, and then to the Skrull Society. This could be their throne world of Tarnax 4, and then ending on another frozen planet, bringing Uatu full circle with his snowy beginnings this episode. Notice how as Ultron tries to crack the Watcher's head like an egg, steam sizzles off of it in the cold air. And this is also the way Captain Marvel tried to implode Ultron's head on Xandar, just showing how with every fight, Ultron is learning a new way to kill someone. But the Watcher is able to break free and retreats to his purple spear, where back in episode 4, the Watcher left Strange supreme. This time the framing is reversed from their first encounter. Uatu now looks over his shoulder to see Strange creeping up behind him, with all of his monstrous entities still part of him. But of course Uatu has come here because Strange is the one other Nexus level being he might know of who might be able to help him fight Ultron.
Are you ready to break your oath?
Yeah, interesting to hear Strange talk this way as a doctor bound by his own Hippocratic oath to do no harm. But that doesn't apply to robots, I bet. The Watcher changes his tune.
I see now.
Or demons.
I need your help.
Oh, the music.
Yeah, notice how the music shifts here from a dramatic orchestral swell and choir shrieks to a simple acoustic guitar melody over the credits. It was the music of Doctor Strange trying to work past his absolute point in episode 4 and now reflecting this new cooperation between the two. I think we can expect their solution to be one part using Zola's algorithm to de-link Ultron from his hive mind, one part using the hunger virus and another Infinity Stone armed threat, and ultimately, since Ultron remains a slippery code impossible to eradicate fully, trapping him the way Strange Supreme was trapped, perhaps by breaking the multiverse in such a way to leave it impossible to navigate. Maybe what that opening imagery of every episode showing spiraling, broken shards has been foretelling us this whole time. And of course, I think this series is going to set up the MCU with a broken, chaotic multiverse ahead of titles like Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. You can support New Rockstars by checking out our merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com.
Check them out, man. They got some great shirts. Great shirts, man. And there's always something new around the corner. And just, if you're not already subscribed with you guys, do it. Again, like, I got some questions about, like, how the Infinity Stones operate, because they've been kind of inconsistent, even in the comics. But for the most part, it's always kind of been that they don't work outside of their native timeline or universe. So, like, that brings into question, like, how does it not work? They work, obviously, between the multiverse and whatever this realm in between that the Watcher resides in, where he's got access to all of the multiverse. Like, they work there. They work in every other reality that Ultron goes into. So I'm curious about the logistics of that and why they don't work at the TVA. I've heard some explanations, but I'd like a concrete answer from the MCU personally, but it's just a little nitpick. I really enjoyed the episode. It was epic. It was awesome. Quite enjoyed it. But yeah, what'd you guys think? What'd you think of the Easter eggs? What was your favorite Easter egg? What is one? Maybe you, are you all disappointed about the Charles Xavier thing that we thought about? A little bit, mildly. But guys, sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Feel free to join our Discord and we can talk about Marvel, DC, whatever. I got links to that and all my socials down in the description below. Remember, if you're not already subbed to New Rockstars, I hope you go check them out and give them some love. Before we go, I want to shout out to channel legends, Mandy Share, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philip Vane, Yuri Korskov, Margaret Grace, and Peelings M. Thank you guys so much for your support. But guys, it's been a crazy ride so far. A lot of great details, and we got one more to go before we get into the finale for Marvel's What If. And I'll see you guys next week for that episode. Take care, everybody.